the Egg Harbor Book Club. Today we're discussing the Lions of Fifth Avenue. So all of you virtual people, hopefully you're hearing me okay. Thumbs up if my voice is carrying okay. All right. So today we're talking about the Lions of Fifth Avenue. And we're also, the last part of our meeting, discussing our book choices for the next year. And these are from suggestions from people, from other book clubs. And so we'll be talking about those. But we're going to first talk about the book, The Lions of Fifth Avenue by Fiona Davis. So, hey, did you like it? Did you not like it?
Yeah,
What do you think?
Okay, so by chapter 16, I was really pissed because if you're an educated woman, you had to be gay. And then towards the rest of the book, if you weren't married, you had to be a spinster and to learn how to live as a spinster. I got pissed. The story itself was fine, but I was mad at the author like the entire time. So there's my 2 cents about did I like it or not.
Yeah. Okay, Trissa, what do you think?
Yeah.
I know you liked it.
I didn't have those feelings.
No, I know, because this is your style.
Yeah, I liked it. I found it, the one thing that I found annoying was I didn't like going back and forth.
Yeah, too many stories.
I didn't like going back
Too
and
many
forth, so what I
stories.
did was, whoever came first, I just had to ask for a synopsis.
Yeah.
Laura came first. I read like 5 or 6 of Laura's chapters, and then I went back and
Good
read.
idea.
Because then I knew what was going on.
Yeah.
And I understand some of your criticism, Nancy, but it was set in a time where I thought it was very beneficial to know what Laura had to go through to even.
But she could have gone through that, and lots of women did go through that, and they weren't gay.
Yeah.
And
But that
so
club
it just,
wasn't only gay women.
no,
I did some
but
research
they
on it.
emphasized that if
Yeah,
you're
it
these
was-
educated, the doctor,
Uh-huh.
and then Laura, who was married, and then, oh no, once she got her education and whatever, then she had to become gay. That just pissed me off. That if you were an educated woman, it didn't matter what, you had to be gay. And I'm not making
One person is gay and everybody has to.
the
the
two
doctor.
main
Yes.
characters.
Doctor, yeah.
And it was after she had her education that she became gay. And I'm not saying
And
anything
she's
wrong
not-
about anybody
she's
being gay.
bisexual.
I'm just-
I would
I
say
would say she was.
She was.
I would say that she was exploring all possibilities, and she was in a situation where when she encounters the doctor and she encounters the other women in the club, this was such an incredible experience for her to be with women
Who had brains in their head.
that were, and it accepted her and accepted the fact that you should have brains in your head. That I just think she was exploring.
But when she was at Vassar, wasn't she around all kinds of educated women? Yeah. And so
Yeah, but
it wasn't until she got
it
with
was
this group.
I would say Vassar was an enclave that was protected. And I would say that what's the name of the club? I would say that was an exposure to the real world. And that these were women that were out in society. And I may be wrong, but I think Vassar at that time, yes, women were educated, women were accepted.
But they were expected to get married.
But yeah, it
And
was a
that's
very
their
different thing.
education helped them become a wife to a certain level of,
Right, and I can
From Harvard or
give you a
something.
personal experience. I went to a girls' boarding school. And when I got to college with boys, I was like, excuse me. I mean, first of all, I didn't know what to wear. Second of all, I had been prescribed what I wore every day. But second of all, it was kind of like, boys were presidents of things. No, it was all girls. So we were somewhat, and this was I graduated in 1970. This was a protected situation where we were kind of like, oh, wow, they're boys. So that's what I'm basing on saying that, not a problem.
It's just
That Vassar was an enclave at that time, and what has been said.
Marcia?
Thank you, Marcia.
okay,
At least I admitted it. I didn't.
I agree with you.
But anyway, I just really feel that way, that you went to Vassar, but then you were even better because you knew how to make better tea. You knew how to arrange the plates better.
Well, and you were of a certain socioeconomic group that understood what was expected of you from these guys from Harvard or wherever.
You were a trophy because you had this degree.
You had a brain in your head,
You didn't
but
get a
yet you were
job,
still
you just go
expected
work.
to, because that would put you on those committees so you
could
could
arrange the
raise
plates
money to, help the orphan
Library
children
and the
from
Institute.
Africa
Yeah.
and things like that.
Right.
So
I think the story could have just been as powerful without that influence.
Possibly.
I agree with you. I think it could have been really a shorter and better mystery if it had a lot less description.
A lot
I mean,
of books are like that.
Really? I mean, I was through the 5th chapter and I was just like, so bored.
Well,
And then I started reading the end, just to kind of
And
catch
I'm
on.
with Isabel, just back and forth.
Yeah.
Every book now goes back,
Yeah.
every book I pick up, it has to have the part
Yeah.
from the 1900s and then the part now.
Yeah.
And I would just love something that's
Start to
linear,
finish,
that
yeah.
goes from
Yeah.
point A
Book
to
one, book
point
two.
B.
Thank
Yeah.
goodness I had the book and not on my Kindle, because
Oh
that
my
would have just
God.
driven me
Oh, yeah,
insane.
this was
Yeah.
But I had the physical book that I
Yeah.
I
could
could
put
go
back
back and
and
Yeah.
forth,
forth.
but see, this is, I don't understand right now, every author has to write a book in this genre or
Yeah.
this particular
It's a
mode.
fad.
It's
Yeah.
a fad,
Is it
and I'm
the editors that
so,
are doing that, or the editors telling them this is what you
Sometimes.
should do?
I'm just so
I
tired of it.
know,
I just
yeah.
want a book. I just got done with another book that, back and forth from the 1960s to now. And I'm thinking, I'm tired of that.
When
I
did
write
it start
down
when
all
that Time Traveler book came out? It seems like that was like
Oh, yeah.
The Time Traveler's
7 or 8 years ago.
The Time Traveler's Wife.
Yeah.
Right.
That
was really good.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
good, but it really
Yeah.
but that went back and forth and it
Yeah.
was really good. Where
Yeah.
these, it just gets,
Well, this
Yeah,
was
it's
just
getting
like,
old now.
this was like 2 pages of what happened in 1900. And then all of a sudden we were in 1993 and that was like.
And
I
why
was like- I was
1993?
like,
it was jerky.
Why 1993? That made no sense to
because
me.
it started in 1913.
Well, but,
So many years.
why couldn't it have been, later? Or
Well,
current?
I think in the beginning, you have this women's rights movement.
Yeah.
I mean, women at that time didn't want to be subservient to their husbands anymore. And even the husband saying, well, I'm the breadwinner. I don't want you going out and doing this. And she just felt that she was so controlled in that situation that she wanted to get out and she wanted to be her own person. And I think she met Sanger and other women's rights. I don't know if Elizabeth Stent and all those people were there in 1913. But
And
You know, the right to vote,
that was
yeah,
true
yeah,
information.
yeah.
Earlier,
The early ones are gone by then.
yeah,
The only
and
one
I
that survives
thought,
is
wow,
Cindy.
I can't imagine being under such strings or whatever. Of course, we're all in the workforce
But the library
today.
itself was quite interesting.
Yeah.
And that there was literally an apartment that they could
Yeah.
live in
That was awesome,
and, that it was really like a little
Mhm.
city that was, so the architectural part of that, I really found
That was
Have you ever
interesting.
been to the New York Library?
Yes.
It's absolutely beautiful.
Yes.
The thing I remember the most about it is the bathroom. The flowers, which is gorgeous. I was like,
Well, and how about the mystery of the missing books? That was kind of interesting
Yeah.
throughout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But didn't
Didn't
you
you
figure
find
out
it-
it was the son pretty quickly
Yes.
though?
Yes.
I mean, and that was
Didn't
such
you also find it like odd that,
Little
well, there are a lot of
mystery there.
things with this book, but she gets with Nick, the detective that they hired, and the very first bookshop that they go to
Yeah.
solves the whole, they just, I mean, how many bookstores were there? And the first one that she walks into with him, we found the perpetrator with, with book, just,
Yeah.
well, what kind of mystery is that? We didn't,
Yeah.
could go to 2 bookstores.
I kept
or-
reading anything, where's the mystery? Yeah.
Where is
Yeah.
her, where was her, when she found out that the teacher had, her professor had taken,
Plagiarized.
plagiarized.
Yeah.
Okay,
And that was
all this
okay.
fighting that she went through, and I
Yeah.
was waiting for her, where was her outrage.
Yeah,
Where was her?
exactly.
I fought this hard. I neglected my family.
Mhm.
I have, these things have happened with, the
Who are we
marriage.
with,
I've
Laura
been
or the
obsessed.
granddaughter?
Pardon?
That was Laura.
Laura, because
Oh, the Laura
the
part was
reverse,
just-
he plagiarized her work
And
and.
then
Yeah,
there's
well, okay,
feelings,
all right,
I guess.
let's go
And
back
she-
to when
yeah,
this is happening.
Yeah.
Let's go back to when this is
19
happening.
Yeah.
This is the 1900s, and the fact that she's even gotten this far. Yeah, I think sometimes you're looking at it from a woman's perspective now. That's what a woman would do now.
But that happened to
No,
me
she- I
in
think she would have,
1974.
yeah.
74 is a hell of a lot different than
But I was
1913.
plagiarized by one of my professors. And she literally presented one of my papers at a conference. And it happened to be that some of my sorority sisters were at that conference and they knew my paper because they read it and helped edit and whatever. And they immediately called me and said, Dr. Shaw's just presented your paper at this conference. Did I do anything about it? No, you were a student and this was somebody of authority and you didn't do anything about it.
And if Nancy had that attitude in 1974,
Yeah, right.
this character in
Yes.
1913
Would never have
was
done
never
anything.
even
But
thought
she
of.
had heard that this professor was plagiarizing even some of the men and other people before she went in and told the people of this club, oh, I won't publish, I won't do anything, it'll be a secret. And then she's like, oh my God, he plagiarized him. That to me was very fake. She knew he was already doing that, you know?
All right, well,
So I thought that was.
Yeah, but
I thought it was
I
a lot of
understand how you
yeah.
wouldn't have gone and approached him, although the plagiarism drove me insane.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so I can understand why she didn't do anything
Oh.
about it or didn't go to authorities.
Yeah.
I didn't do it either.
No, I
You know.
understand that.
But she was head of the department, so you weren't gonna.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought it was pretty cool they got to live in the library.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that is-
First,
And they're,
isolation,
that's
though.
Yeah.
true.
That-
There
that was
wasn't
like a
any
very
Very
way.
in play. The poor
People
kids
are-
had no place to play
Yeah.
and they had no friends because,
They lived in a library.
yeah.
And Pearl did okay, but Harry.
Could be
was a
worse. I mean, you
mess.
could,
Yeah.
it could be a worse place. to
Well,
live
no,
than-
I agree with you, but what
But-
I'm saying is, I think if you were just a couple or a single person, I think it would have been the best place in the world. I'm just saying, it wasn't very kid friendly.
Yeah.
But then
They had
again,
to
I
be
think
quiet.
I think you're looking at it from our perspective.
Right.
Kids were not thought of. I mean, kids were not nurtured and thought that, oh, wow, they should be able to play, they should be
Right.
able to do
Oh,
this.
I agree
Kids
with
were
you.
thought, it was thought that kids should just be there and do what they were told.
Right, right.
Exactly.
You
Well,
know,
and
so-
she reminisces about their prior life before they moved to the library, and she talks about that, because they have open spaces,
Right.
kids could roam.
Yeah.
So this was like, all of a sudden, she had this idyllic life, and now she's, yes, in a beautiful building, but think about the pandemic, what everybody just went
Yes.
through, and we had
Yes.
homes, and we could walk
Yes.
outside and have places, somewhat places to go, she had nothing.
But what
basically.
woman would have left her son on the streets in New York?
Yeah,
and
that I thought
takes
was
off
weird
for
too,
London?
yeah.
Yeah, and just
back
never,
then,
ever,
yeah.
ever tries to,
Now, maybe I don't understand what it's like to have a kid leave and go live on the streets, and I'm sure there's probably people that have had to go through that, but I don't know that I would have just left. No
Probably
matter
not,
what.
but I think the streets way back, even when I was growing up, were a much safer place to be. I mean,
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
he was
Yeah.
running with a gang, but yeah,
Yes,
that,
it
there's
is.
not always things you can do though.
right.
You know, I don't have kids, but I can understand that people, what do you do?
And there's a certain
Right.
point where
Yeah.
maybe you just have to,
You say, okay, yeah.
okay,
exactly,
but
yeah, there's nothing you
I don't know if I would just leave and,
Yeah, because he was 11. when-
But okay, but
when-
again,
Back
we're
then,
looking,
back
are we,
then,
are we
11-year-olds
possibly-
were very
are we
independent.
not, are we possibly looking at it in a time period of, have you ever had a conversation with somebody who's in their 20s and say, God, DNA is really an incredible thing? And they look at you like you're nuts.
Yeah.
I was watching some TV crime drama with people that, like, I don't know what it was. Let's say it was Perry Mason. Okay, and, the first question out of the 20-year-old's mouth is, well, where's the DNA? I think we're putting a perspective
Yeah,
of
yeah.
abandoning a child that she goes to the police. Are the police really, I mean, what are her alternatives to find this child? She can roam the streets, but she doesn't have the alternatives that we have. I think we have to try and get back in the time period and think about it. Not saying it's right or wrong, but I think there are things about when you read historical fiction, I think one of the purposes of it is to educate you about that time. And I
Well,
think
and
that
as
we
I
have to
say, an
get in that
11-year-old was considered
Sure.
Much
They
older
were,
than,
yeah.
much
they
older
were-
than an 11-year-old is
right,
now.
right,
Yeah.
much. I mean,
Yeah, that's true.
and they were
married by
expected to
15.
be,
Yeah,
you
and
know,
working.
working
so,
and-
yeah.
yeah, and very few finished school.
Yeah.
So you're
I
talking
mean, look at the
about,
situation that we're hearing about children now that are coming across the border, say in Texas alone.
Yeah.
And they're getting to this country alone and they're having to figure it out. That was a very different time. And Marcia's point is that, you know, it was well taken. The kids at 11 were older. And yeah, it's all very grim and to our way, to our 20, what are we at the 21st century? To our 20, I get confused about this stuff. The 21st century way of thinking, you know, it is ominous. It is horrible, but there were a lot of horrible things. I mean, think about kids that got sold,
Yes.
you know, to farms
farms.
in
Yeah,
the
to
Midwest.
farms,
And,
right.
you know,
The
children
orphan
were
train,
just
all
not
that.
really revered. We're all damn lucky that we were born when we were because, you know, they started to care about kids.
Yeah.
The other thing is, it hadn't some time lapsed between when she left. It hadn't there been a few years there where he was on the street, so she probably
Yes.
has sort of
There was a time.
Yes.
given
Yeah.
up or
And I think
accepted
she-
that he
yes.
was out there.
And she watched him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
she
she
did
did
go
go
watch
take
him
him
to
to
lunch,
lunch
yeah.
and talk to him,
Yeah.
but that happened quite a bit later.
Yeah. Yeah,
took
that
him to
was,
lunch.
there was a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, she,
There's
as
a
you
lot
said,
going
there
on
was a
in this.
lot going on in the book. I, in the beginning, had a hard time with the beginning of the book, and I had to put it down, and I read another book in between, and then I read this in the last 2 days. So I'm fresh.
Well, that's a problem I'm having. I read this stuff too soon. And then
Yeah.
I go to discuss it and it's like,
Yeah.
but then they're very nice people that hand you a synopsis and you're caught up.
I had to read one this morning. I had read it a couple months ago before, and so I'm looking at the thing going, oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, exactly.
This happened, that happened, because sometimes, you know, I have a list, and when it comes on the reserve, and when it comes in, then you
Yeah.
read it,
But I
and
will say that Janine does an excellent job of keeping books available for us for this.
Yeah.
Yes,
book.
absolutely. Thank you.
And she's in stiff competition for this one. I know of 2 other book clubs that are reading.
Yeah,
That's-
we
is that
have,
our
I
next
think we have them all here.
I think you do because somebody said to me, have you already checked that out, Tristan? I said, yeah. I said, have you read it? And I said, not all of it. And they said, well, can I borrow it? Yeah, you can, but you have to get it
Yeah,
back.
it's the next one.
I can
Oh, this
see
one's.
that.
Bailey's
Yeah.
Harbor read it. My sister read it for their book club a while
Oh, I'm
ago.
so sorry.
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
Hey Janine, we didn't catch that last part. I don't know if that was Trissa, but we didn't catch that last part.
Trissa, what did you say? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Um,
Just thinking if the books are available.
Yeah.
I was just
Yeah.
talking about available books, Jeff.
Hey, you
I
guys,
got it.
I was complimenting Janine on keeping books in availability for us.
Yeah, yes, yeah.
I'm tired, talk.
You know what, I always download questions, because that helps me remember the
Right.
book, and so I do that. So one of the questions that I got was, losing the only manuscript that Jack wrote
Yeah.
was such a huge deal, except for in today's world with our technology, that would never have happened.
No.
Nor would the plagiarism issue have happened.
Right.
Because you would have been able to pull it off your flash drive and show it to the authorities if you had the guts to do it, but I was pre-computer too when that
Right.
happened to me. So I wouldn't have been able to prove it because she had my paper. And so.
Yeah,
but-
unless you had a carbon copy.
Yeah.
Because it was carbon
copy, real carbon copy.
Yeah, but you should have had his edited one, like
Yeah.
the one,
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't, yeah, they burned the one.
Yeah.
But if we
yeah.
had, you know,
Like
it
Laura
only.
said, I would have typed it
Yeah.
for him, even though she already said to him she
Yes.
wasn't going
Yeah.
to
Please
type,
type
which I
it.
thought for back
But
then.
they
was
could have had
pretty-
carbon copies then. I don't know when carbon copies came out.
I think,
I think a little later.
Yeah.
But
Later,
it would-
yeah.
with today's technology, you wouldn't have had that issue. And that
Again.
might have
Yeah.
helped save Harry because he wouldn't have had the guilt of all that.
But then we wouldn't have the story.
That's
We weren't in today's
Yes,
technology.
but if we had that technology, it would have changed this whole story.
Yeah. I know, I have the
Okay.
questions from the author.
Okay, carbon
Yeah.
paper was patented in 1806.
See, so they could have
They
been.
could have had a
copies.
carbon copy.
Yeah,
Well, that's,
and you would think
That's
the
a big
library might
missing
be one of the places that would have
Yeah.
a carbon copy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
It
amazing.
was a date of achievement, that the carbon paper was patented, so it was patented by the English inventor Ralph Wedgwood.
I wonder if it had anything to do with the China.
Yes, yes, the prominent maker, yes, pottery maker family. So it was invented, so they could have had a
Yes.
carbon copy.
Yes.
and it's a big, big, big deal that they didn't have a carbon.
Right,
Yes.
right, especially when we now know in
But the
1806.
story wouldn't have worked.
Yeah.
if we hadn't heard that.
The question was, with technology been different, how would this story have been different?
Oh, was
Yeah.
carbon really expensive back then?
What do you know about the author?
Well, she does historical fiction. She's very cute.
Thank you. Is she
That was
young?
really important to me.
Oh, yeah, I didn't
Yeah. She wrote Chelsea Girls, I think it's the
Yeah.
group of
Yeah.
girls that came back to New York, were they British, and they came back to New York? Were they doing something there? It was a kind of
I've
a light
read other-
historical.
A
piece.
dress, masterpiece, Chelsea Girls, and she's 30 something.
I think I read a dress. I read one.
Yeah, and she went,
That's another thing, we're
graduated
getting
the,
really young authors. and
I
we're not
know.
like-
she went to the Columbia Journalism School.
Yeah.
So she was
Well, we
right.
don't always know.
She knew, I
She
mean,
was in the hood.
she, yeah.
Of New York.
She traveled around with her family, and so the library was always really important to her. And she ended up in New York, and yeah.
Well, bully for her at age in her 30s to be where she's at.
Yeah. So she has a really nice book club kit with a little note to the readers, and it talks a little bit about her research and about the rise of the new woman. And she was talking about, in it, all the different things that she discovered. So this note to the readers was really good. And she included also a map of the locations
Yeah.
from the story and pictures of what the
Cross
library.
section of the library. Yeah.
And I took a class at the Library of Congress, and
Oh, wow.
just the building
Yeah.
and the getting my Library of Congress library
Very
card
card. Yeah,
and
cool.
watching the chutes of
Yeah.
information go from, and the books travel like under, that
Yes.
was just like
Wow.
amazing. So I wish she had included these pictures in the book, which some authors do
Sure, sure.
include pictures, because it shows the dumbwaiters.
Yes,
Yeah.
the dumb
Yeah.
waiting system was interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that-
yeah, so, I think, I wanted to mention something about the suicide of Jack.
Yes.
And I think it wasn't just his book being burnt. I think how his son acted, and losing all faith in his wife. I mean,
Okay.
he said she was like unhuman,
Yeah.
you're doing something unnatural.
Yeah.
And I think all of that contributed. It wasn't just that book.
Yeah. That's true. That's
And I
true.
think back then that suicides happened for those reasons.
Well, I think he was losing face because his wife wasn't
Yeah.
being the
Yes.
person that,
Mhm.
and then he was being investigated,
Yeah.
and then he lost his book,
Yeah.
and
Everything.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
But not to
and it was
know-
his son that was the thief. And so if you look at his note, he says, sorry about what I brought onto the library. He doesn't admit that he's the thief. It was his son, so he took the blame. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, all those things would
Yeah. Yeah.
contribute to that. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think Fiona, what she does is she takes, and I don't know, has anyone read any of her other books? You have.
I am.
Does she take a place and then from that place in New York, build the story?
Yeah.
That's what it sounded like from her
Yeah,
description here.
address.
She takes a place and then builds her story around there, which I think is very,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
a good,
neat.
and that's her style.
Yeah.
And so, yeah,
A lot of research.
yeah, a lot of research. And she had her own table. I don't know if anyone, if this was in the end notes, they gave her her own spot at the New York Public Library to do her research. And they will give authors their own spot. And so she was all excited about that. I think she's a library geek.
Okay.
She has really, and I think that's, just her whole thing. What did you think about Sadie? Was an interesting character. She was kind of odd. And her outfits, like, I'm like, oh, did they even need to do the whole outfit?
Yeah. Why did you have to
But I
wear
can picture
vintage
her.
clothing
Yeah.
and,
Well,
why did
She
she have to
comes
be
probably
weird?
from her personality. They were trying-
Yeah.
describing
And
her
also,
personality.
I think they said she wore vintage, then that translates back to the 1930s, that whole thing, maybe, I don't know, I don't know.
And
Some sort
I
of
think after
connection.
saying,
sort of bad things about the author, now that I hear that she's that young, I think a lot of these things too will work out in the next 30 years of writing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
Or people that are that age do care about it,
that's true, that's a good point.
you know? I mean, the more I think about what we're saying is it's all a matter of who's reading it and what perspective is
Sure,
coming
sure,
out.
sure.
Yeah.
And
And
isn't that true about any book?
well, it's
Yeah,
true about
absolutely.
any book, but what was the last book that we discussed that was the same
The
thing?
guest
Yeah.
list.
The guest
Guest
list.
list.
Remember the,
Yeah.
right, it
And
was
it was a
like,
young author.
it was
Yeah.
young too, and it was like,
Yeah.
we were all with, we
There
had
were all kinds of holes in
we had
it.
questions, and it was like, well, why was that
Yeah.
important? What was this important? We don't care about stuff like that.
Yeah.
But a 30-year-old
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
Another. pet
So
peeve.
how old are the authors on this?
You're one that,
I know.
past puberty.
And the thing
So
is,
that's another
I think
reason
I
why
would
we
have-
definitely should vote for the Splendid and the Vile.
Oh, yeah.
And she's
Eric.
75.
He's older, and it's about older people.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, it was really hard finding books by men.
Oh, really?
Mostly the books that were coming up, I said only have 2 books that were written by men on this list. I couldn't find any that were good.
Well, that doesn't surprise
Yeah, so.
Well, I
Well,
found it interesting.
Alexander McCall Smith, we both
That's
enjoy
true.
his stuff.
Oh, wait, I'm wrong. There's
Yeah, man.
4.
Well,
I
that's
missed
just serious.
Frederick.
There's four.
Four.
But the majority are women
Well,
authors.
this is a segue in my mind into books, if it doesn't tell me. I think you all know that I work at the Fish Creek Information Center, and I go back and forth to the library because Holly Summerholder's a good friend. And if she's doing business, she just stands still. If she comes to see me, she just stands still. And I was just shocked. A man checked out books. Krista and Hannah,
Yeah.
Really?
which I think is a real woman's author.
Yeah.
Another, I can't think of the other ones, but there were 3 books, and I was so tempted to say, are you picking those up for your wife? or
Yeah.
your
No, I have men that read.
But that would be
Yeah.
interfering in Holly's business, so I
No,
couldn't
no,
say
they
it.
read her.
I just found, but
Yeah,
what made me
but
think.
you read about the
what I-
Alaska book, the great.
They.
They-
Yeah,
Yeah.
that Alaska Highway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the great, the great
But
one.
what made
The
me
guy
think
book.
of that was your comment that you had trouble finding men authors, because it's like, they've dominated for years.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean,
I don't know,
it's a
it's
good.
And they're writing more of the thriller, David
Yeah.
Baldacci
I
and,
know.
John Sanford,
That's
and
their
that's
style.
their,
Yeah.
and James Patterson.
Yes.
They'll go right to the top of the.
Well, it's not really James
That's
Patterson.
so-
it's
yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Well, it's his
Yeah.
launch.
Yeah, but I mean, let's
Fleshed out
talk
his
about,
outline.
in the
Jack
past,
Ryan.
Yeah.
You know.
Hemingway.
Yeah.
Fitzgerald, I mean,
Mitchner.
Mitchner, I mean, there, people, I don't know, it's just kind of interesting, is this a trend that women are becoming to the forefront? And, thank you, it's about time, but,
Yeah.
because they used to get regulated to writing a lot of proofread stuff.
Yeah, as we
As
saw.
was in the
Yeah.
story,
Yeah,
that they had to
yeah.
have women's stories.
Yeah.
And our Laura Lipman book, you remember that one? I can't think of the name.
Oh, the Troublesome Creek?
No,
that was
no,
something
no.
else.
The book
I
woman,
should have
yeah.
No, Laura
No,
Lipman.
she's,
she,
Tell us about the book, maybe we'll remember.
Maybe.
she became a journalist later on in her life in Baltimore. And she.
I'm remembering more, I
Yeah.
remember something, but not what the book
But
is.
what she had to write about was always the, go,
Yeah, the women stuff.
yeah, nothing. And that's even with Laura and the
Lady in the
story.
Lake.
Lady in the Lake, yeah.
Well, and remember, I mean, remember Nancy Dickerson, a correspondent for NBC, and she finally winds up being able to do Meet the Press, and her son's now doing Face the Nation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she starts out being a social reporter.
Yeah, we all do.
And that's the way women, in journalism, that's the way
Mhm.
women work. They were, you went and made sure that, the plates
Get
were
your foot in
arranged
the
right. And what you talked about, what they had on.
The wedding,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the war
But
what.
they actually,
Mm-hmm.
and did Walters ever start out that way? I don't think so. I can't imagine her ever being proof. But, but it's just interesting the way it's evolved. And that's
Yeah.
kind of the way books evolved too. Women's stories.
Well, just like, in the paper, women who went into journalism, they
Right.
had to start with Miss Manners or something,
Yeah.
and then
Right.
had to, because all those men did all the city and all the
Right.
crime and all,
Mhm.
all of those.
Right.
Yeah, so I think, things have changed and for women in that area,
Yeah.
So there was some other interesting questions here. I think her whole going to that club, and I read up on that club, and it was secrecy was important. And then
And then she wrote about it.
Yeah,
which
and I
was really,
No.
and
Yeah.
I don't know, I was like, oh.
That's breaking a trust.
Yeah, I just
can't
And-
imagine.
Yeah, and then the fact that, what was her doctor?
then he takes it over and then publishes it, which is,
Well, of
Yeah.
course he publishes it. He wants to take
Wakeman,
advantage of it.
that was the professor, but what was her girlfriend, the
Amelia
doctor?
Potter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine that she would have done that, but
After, or said something to them that,
she would never do this.
Yes,
Yeah.
repeatedly.
Yes.
They'll never repeat any of this, and then
Right.
she'd walk into another room and write
There
down
you
all her
go,
notes.
Yeah.
She didn't think it would ever see the light of day. She thought it was just her thesis and it would just be in,
And I know,
Then
I was
why
a tower
write
and
it
Why write
academia,
it
and never
down?
get out of there. and-
Well,
Well,
Why
that's
write it
naive.
down? It's not gonna
Well,
be
naivete that it was just gonna be a thesis, naivete that you could trust Wakeman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Naivete that Wakeman wouldn't think, oh my God, look at this article, look what I can do with
Well,
that.
and she even knew that he was taking her
Exactly.
story ideas when she'd meet with them.
Yeah, that's true.
And then
She
he'd
already
go
knew
ahead
that.
and he'd say, no, these aren't good ideas,
Yeah.
then he'd go ahead and use them. So she already
She
knew
knew,
that.
yeah. Would you take the chance of submitting?
No,
data
see,
for a thesis?
I
wouldn't.
Again, it's the power structure for a student and somebody in
Yeah, but-
authority. And, having had gone through it, I don't.
And it's
don't know.
amazing that you had to go through that in 1974.
Oh, I wouldn't,
Yep.
I think.
Well,
it happened
I-
long later than that even. I used
Well,
to hear stories
plagiarism,
about
I
that.
was
I'm
a
sure, yeah,
university
but I
professor,
just-
so plagiarism
Oh, yeah.
is an issue always.
Yeah.
And maybe I was hyper vigilant about it. Of course, there's electronic tools now that we can use,
Yeah.
and we can catch all this stuff. But it is that hierarchy, and that
mhm.
you just, I hope today people would call their professor on it,
Yeah.
but
Well, now in the reverse, you have to be so careful. Like, anything you send electronically.
Yeah.
oh, absolutely. No,
Yeah,
I
you
had,
get fined.
I had tools, I had electronic tools,
No,
and
but I
I would
mean,
just
you say
upload
something-
the students' papers into this file, and immediately would come back, half this paper came from this source, and it's not cited, and, I'd meet with the students and say, you can't, 2 big chunks of your paper, you need to have multiple sources, and then
You need to
synthesize
cite.
it and have your own
Not just in
ideas.
not just in writing a paper, but, I mean,
Anything online.
you send
yeah.
someone a text and
Yeah.
say that they're an absolute asshole. It can come back.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
it's not gonna
I
go
mean, you
anywhere.
used to be, well, not that it was a nice thing, but you used to be able to do that,
Yeah.
But there was a ruling yesterday with the Supreme
Yes,
Court.
Yes.
with the cheerleaders.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
and she
correct.
had used, I don't know, had spoken with a lot of F-bombs in
Yes.
her
Yes.
message, and then it was after school hours
Right.
and
Off campus, she was
off
on
campus,
campus.
and then they took her off of the cheerleading squad and
And
everything
then- And
school.
then they said that she has the right. Now, my question with that though is what happens with bullying then?
Yeah.
Can you then bully a child at somebody's?
I think that's different. I
Well,
think,
that's what she was doing. though.
She was expressing her opinion
Yeah.
Right,
and.
she was
and-
saying.
it wasn't really.
Yeah, I mean,
bullying,
I
she
just think that,
Yeah,
I personally am not, I don't have a problem with, I'm not gonna really ever have to deal with that for the rest of my life. I can't imagine what it means to be 30. But then, you know, hopefully, when my mother was 30, she said things like that, you know, and things just change so incredibly fast, but they change so much faster. And an example is my grandmother was married to the floor dress and wore it to the floor dress. And she flew in an airplane for the first time, but that was in her lifetime. And in my lifetime, we've gone from flying in an airplane to being able to do anything electronically. It's happened so fast. And the electronic stuff has happened in the last 30 years. Whereas my grandmother, from the floor to the dress to the floor to the airplane, was a span of close to 75 years.
So I have that same insight, but it was my mother, not my grandmother. She went to school on a pony, and there's pictures of her with her pony. And then when she and my father retired, they moved to New Smyrna Beach, Florida. We could watch the space shuttle go over the house. So in her lifetime, from walking to riding a horse, she talked about the different cars that they had, the running alongside with the lantern so that you could actually see the road and so in her lifetime, that kind of transportation evolution. And that was,
But in
you know,
30
one generation.
In 30 years, think of what's happened with
Yeah.
technology. In
Yeah.
20 years.
Oh, yeah. And
And
I,
But a lot of what you're seeing with technology, to me, goes back to, were they not taught anything? Did their parents not teach them morals, how to be respectful to other people? I mean, that's what I don't get. Even as a kid, you had some bullies, but I can't imagine doing what some of these people do
Oh,
online as a
yeah.
young kid. My parents, and then the parents, the ones taking the kid or taking the school to court or whoever, to support that crap.
yeah.
My parents would smack me upside the
Oh,
head about
Thank
it.
God we didn't have Facebook
but it
back when
had
we were
nothing to
teenagers.
do-
I wish there wasn't, I wish those high school kids and junior.
Is
high
it
kids would-
Facebook that's doing it, or is it's the kids? that
It's
do
the
it?
kids, but
But
it's
it's
the
the tool that allows them to do that.
But they're not being
It's
taught.
society that's
It's-
letting them do it.
Exactly.
Right, it's.
Because
the parents,
quite
it's
frankly,
the-
why aren't you smacking? You don't have children. I don't have
But
children.
I
But
would.
if you, why aren't parents smacking children upside the head?
Yeah.
Because if they do,
Yeah.
they will be reported to social services.
Or is it because mothers are working and they're not home
There's
disciplining
part
their
of it.
children?
Yeah.
It's
I
all a
think even if you're
combination.
home though, the kids are in the other
Yes,
room.
yes.
They are so much more advanced than
They are.
we are, and then even their parents are in using that
On the
technology.
computer and.
I mean, this is just a really simple example, but my granddaughter, we have one of those Google Assistant kind of things, you know, you can talk to it, it'll
Yeah.
give you all kinds of information, everything. She knew how to access that in a way I never knew. I had no idea how to use it that way and how much information she got from it. And she was just scrolling through, and she's 7.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, she's 7 years old, and so I asked them to show me how to do things
Yes,
because
sure.
they know so much more.
That's
And
very
their-
common these days.
and their parents even admit they know more than them.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, they've grown up with it. Now it's intuitive for them to access
And
it.
they're not
in a way
afraid,
that
they're
we're
not afraid to try things,
Exactly.
kind of thing. Like, we're always, at least I was tempted, like, oh, it's gonna crash, or
Right.
things,
I'll
I'm gonna
push the
lose
wrong
it.
button.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah.
push-
I'll be gone.
Those
I'll
kids
break
don't
it.
care, they
Yeah.
don't care, they just push every button and, you
Right.
know, and they learn so much faster because they're not afraid
Mhm.
of
And all these
doing
things
it.
are very positive and good that we're talking about. But
But,
Not
right,
necessarily.
the
though.
result
Yeah. no,
goes back to, I know my statement is very general, but society's allowing this to happen.
Absolutely.
And and we also live in a bubble. We live in a very nice place. we see very little diversity except on the weekends.
If that.
And we also, I mean, come on, aren't you proud of the fact that we're the most vaccinated county in the
I
state?
am, yes.
I am, but
I
why
am.
are we? Look at the age.
The age group, age group.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah, we're older.
And
yeah.
also another thing, I'm very happy and I'm very proud of Door County. But why do we have it? There's a lot of money in this county.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
You know, and so the thing is that I think sometimes we really need to go over the bridge. You really need to do that and experience other things and push yourself. You need to do what Eleanor Roosevelt said. Do something that scares you every day.
That's good.
I think that's a really good idea. I think the danger comes in people who want to go backwards. Who want it the way it used to
Right.
be.
Yeah, I
Because that will
agree.
never happen.
No,
So we have to all acknowledge
Right.
that it's never going to be the same.
No.
And as
not be afraid of moving forward. As you were
And
saying.
trying new things.
And as our age
exploring
group, you
those
have to
things.
embrace technology to the best of your ability. I
Yeah.
loved it that you called it a Google thing.
Whatever
You
it's
know,
called.
whatever, I don't know what any of the names of it is, and it's really amazing because, like tourists come in and I'm like using the computer and I really don't like it when people are watching me using the computer and it's like, like the other day, I just looked at this person and I said, haven't you gotten it that I'm a one-finger typer? This is gonna take a minute.
Oh, I can't text with two, like.
No, I use my
will learn-
fingers, yeah.
I
No,
can't
but
do
it's
that.
just,
And
Oh, I can't do it with
I
one.
can't,
I can
oh,
do
you
it.
do.
It just
You're a
kills
better
me
person
that
than
these
I am.
people
I
that
can't
come to
do
my
that.
office want
It's
an answer
faster
like
that way.
that.
I-
Because
I
they couldn't
can't.
find it on their phone. And there are two things that happen. Either I'm a one-finger typer and I get the answer, or I give them the answer straight out and they look at me like, are you sure?
Oh, like Sadie.
Which Nancy,
Like
that was the
Sadie.
worst thing you could say to Digger.
I think, the other interesting thing is that kids are really, and I say kids, I'm using that term loosely, I'm talking about my children in
Sure.
their 30s as opposed to their
They're
children. And their fingers just fly,
Yeah.
like you were saying, they just can't. But the interesting thing is they can't research to save their lives. I mean,
Oh.
they have a question about something and I find it
Yeah.
all the time, but they can't figure out, I don't know, or is it that they're too impatient?
Probably.
And so
I
they
think they're
won't take the
impatient.
time.
Everything
to
is
try
at their
and find the
fingertips.
answer.
I mean, research now is the easiest thing in the whole wide
Oh,
world.
yeah.
Remember going through the microfiche?
Oh,
And-
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the card catalog.
Yes.
It's like-
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we knew how to use the library.
We know
But
how to use
kids
those.
these days,
Yeah.
kids these days don't know how to do that. That's right.
Okay, so I have to tell you my Alexa story.
Okay,
So I got my granddaughter a dot for Christmas.
okay.
Or
And
what?
a dot, which is, you
Echo
speak to
dot.
it and
Right,
it does
right,
things.
Yeah, Alexa.
So I said to her, I said to the parents, you need to set it up. They go, oh, you do it. So I set it up with my phone.
Okay.
Okay, I can do a lot now with their dot over
Yes.
in St.
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
I can listen to them.
Oh,
I can
that's
send
dangerous.
sounds. You wouldn't believe something. I can turn on my radio station.
Yeah.
My son
Oh,
goes,
yeah.
we heard mom's station.
Yeah.
It's scary.
We-
It is a scary thing. I'm glad I know more
Yeah.
than them.
Yeah.
And I said, well, as soon as you set it up, you don't have me
That's
like
right.
spying on you.
Yeah.
We
So
had that
I'm-
with my niece where she was on a date and she was on the same account and we were changing her music and everything.
You
And then
got
she
one
texts
up on a
So I have a kitten that I call him Boo Boo, but when, I am careful about this, but when I say, hey, my phone wakes up. And so I'll say, what are you doing? And the phone will say, I can't find it.
I know.
God, this is dazzling. I had to find a contact on my phone this morning while I was talking to somebody and I wasn't sure I could do it.
Oh, yeah.
This is marvelous. I love it. I'm gonna have to come and have lessons from
Well,
you.
and I think
Because I keep saying to
another
myself,
thing
you
that's
can't be afraid
scary
of this,
with
you
all
have to
this
do it.
technology though, is the spam stuff that
Oh,
comes through.
absolutely.
Well, and the thing is, like, some things, like, I had something from supposedly Apple that claimed.
Yeah.
Oh, God, don't
mention
No,
it.
I did.
know.
I
Oh, no,
got
no,
hacked.
no, I didn't. But
I did.
I just had something on my phone this morning that I text my son, I said, this might be for you, but I think it's a scam. He goes, yeah, it's a scam.
Yeah.
But on and I've had messages on my message, and I've emailed or texted people, go, did you message me because I don't want to
Mhm.
open this if
Yeah.
you didn't?
Yeah.
They say, no, we
Yeah.
haven't.
Yeah.
So you
It's very
have to be
sophisticated,
very,
yeah.
very, and the
And,
logo
oh
looks
God,
the
I'm so
same.
glad
Yes.
you're doing that, because I got something that I thought was from Amazon.
Oh, no, no, no,
I
no.
delete most.
Every
Yeah.
credit card.
I just go like this, I
WeChat.
click
No,
at
nothing.
the top,
That's
delete
true.
everything, and I might read one thing.
Yeah.
I delete most of my email every day.
I
don't
do
read
not,
it.
I don't open anything unless
Yeah,
I'm really
yeah.
sure of it. And then, well, that Amazon one, or
Yeah.
it was
Amazon.
Apple. As soon as it asked me for my social security number,
Yeah,
I got out of there so fast, and then I changed my
Yeah.
password and did all that, so they never got anything. And now every time I check to see my account, if anything has been,
Mhm.
taken out, nothing ever has. But they are so sophisticated
Mhm.
these days.
Yeah.
Well, just like all the people that are holding these hospitals hostage and
Yes.
stuff,
Yes.
and these
Yes.
companies,
Yeah.
I mean, amazing.
When you get an email from, and it says Amazon or Apple or whatever, you click on that name, it'll show you the email address.
Yeah.
And you can tell.
See if
not
it's a
theirs.
real-
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's usually some weird email.
Yeah.
Okay, one more question
Okay.
before we talk other books. So Sadie spoke at Robin's trial at the end for a stiffer.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then she got 5 years instead of like 3 years.
Yes.
And because she claimed that it wasn't just stealing a book,
Right.
that she was damaging a piece of Western
Society.
and culture.
Yeah.
So, what'd you think about that? The whole being able to be at the trial, like, was it believable, or do you think that was justified? I mean,
Well, I understand her point.
yeah,
That by stealing either an original,
Right.
and again, technology, we now have photocopies and
Mhm.
stuff, but
But
by
the
stealing
original,
an original that was not scanned in
Mhm.
and we would never copy of, to see the notes that change someone's
Yeah,
writing, you
yeah.
said that about her, that manuscript, that there was value in that. And so by stealing that original work, they are stealing from all of society.
mhm.
And they had to value it like they would an expensive painting or something of, extreme value. And so, yes, I thought it should be recognized that it was stealing something of
Yeah.
extreme value,
Yeah,
not just a piece of paper.
yeah,
But, I still have trouble with 3 or 5 years.
yeah, it's first
For-
offense
for-
and,
yeah.
yeah. But, I think the Shakespeare, the actual
Yes.
damaging,
Yes.
that
That folio.
was,
Oh.
yeah.
oh, sure, yes.
I mean, they said they couldn't get it back in, and I can't believe that,
They
like
couldn't
the
have woven
bookbinder,
that, yeah.
they may not have been able to get it back in.
But they can't do that. I mean, they can't change, it's just, I mean, just,
I
mean,
can't believe you can't mount it back
No,
onto
no,
another sheet of
you
paper and
I
get it
can't
back
explain
in.
it to you, but I've
Yeah.
seen a full, I've seen the folio,
Folios.
I've seen the folio at the folder,
yeah.
and you can't, I
Yeah.
can't explain it, but
Okay.
it's just.
That was-
But
that
it's
was-
interesting that, we've been somewhat complaining that she's 30 years old and that she has different value than we do. It's interesting that she puts this value, so that kind of,
Yeah,
she's mixed up. She's all over the map.
yeah, yeah.
Because at one point, she's at her perspective, where we find offense, she's the adamant 30-year-old, but in the end, when she wants to place so much
Mhm,
value on the
mhm.
folio,
Mhm.
she's okay. She's an old person.
Yeah, I haven't really heard of any book thefts like this. I mean,
And I'm sure there are.
There was a
Yeah.
question.
I'm sure there
When
are.
you
Oh,
looked
I'm
this
sure there
book
are
up,
too.
there was a question, is this based on fact?
and it is.
And it is. There
Yeah.
were books, I believe, of this value stolen from Yale,
Yeah.
but it took a lot longer time. to
Yeah.
And,
I mean,
and
just
they
like
don't
our
And
want
they
to
probably went
announce
to
it.
more than
Yeah.
more than one bookstore
Yeah.
to sell.
Yeah, they don't want to tell people
That's
that you
stolen.
don't.
Well, like the New York Public Library, their people didn't want it out there.
Yeah,
They're
right,
bored
right,
because
right.
then the people won't donate
That's right,
to their
that's right.
institution.
It's not secure.
And
Yeah.
I think that's similar to
Yeah.
other institutions,
Yeah.
I mean, and other libraries around the world. I'm sure that this is happening,
Yeah.
Mhm.
just like artwork
Yes.
is being stolen that we don't even know about
Yeah.
because those places don't want us
To
to
know.
But
know.
artwork's very different. If you steal something that's famous, there's a hole in the wall.
Yeah.
Books have a whole new thing because not everybody knows about it.
Yeah, well,
There's that Netflix series about the art that was stolen in the, was it the 80s?
oh,
Yeah.
from
From
the,
the singer in
Yeah.
Boston.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really good. And I mean, it's still missing.
Yeah.
No, it's not the singer, it's the gardener.
Yeah, something like that.
It's a three woman's name that
Yeah.
ends in gardener.
So I think we don't have a New York Public Library close to us to visit, but if you're in Chicago, I think the Newberry
Yes.
Library is a good place
Yes.
to visit.
Yes.
The outside, the Lions of Fifth Avenue, I think of the Art
Art
Institute in
Institute,
Chicago.
absolutely.
So I mean, we have
Yeah.
our little place. I mean, libraries all over the world are just fascinating to
Yeah.
visit.
Well, we were,
Newberry's better than Harold Washington. It's too new.
I was
Yeah.
in another book club on Tuesday and we were
I need to
discussing
check
the
this.
library
Sandy will
book
check it
by
out.
Susan
Okay.
Orlean,
all right, I gotta
which
go.
is the story of the fire in Los Angeles in '86. And one of the things we discussed was, have you been to libraries throughout the world? What do libraries do? And it was an amazing, it was just a wonderful conversation about people,
Yeah,
because I go to libraries almost every place I go for lots of reasons.
yeah.
It started out because there was Wi-Fi. And
Oh,
I had
yeah.
a fascination. After I found those flowers in the bathroom at the New York Library, I had to keep seeing libraries. Big ones. They were gorgeous.
Well, I was a student in Paris when I was a junior abroad as a, I was Sorbonne. And I was always so confused with the language and everything. And I would go to the library, which was then just opened George Pompidou Center. And that was a fascinating, it was brand new in the 70s. And, but it just like saved me to be in that library. Away from the hectic, I don't know what they're saying. I'm so confused. Why am I here? Yeah, we'll get it. She's here all the time.
Oh, the three
Yeah,
minutes ago.
she reads stuff all the
Oh,
time.
yeah,
Okay,
check this out.
let's talk books for, so some of you have voted. I have
I
here.
did it online.
And you did it online, which is fine. And if you want to vote and give it to me.
Do you want names on these or not?
No names. So I don't know if any of you read any of these books and you want to say.
Susan
anything.
has,
I
because she
vote,
was
I vote, I
already
really,
read.
I like to keep things simple, but so I don't have to keep reading, but I really like Eric Larson and I
Okay.
really respect the way he researches and the way he puts things together. And although he's factual, it doesn't drone on he doesn't drone on in my opinion. And I think The Splendid and the Vile is very interesting. It's about 1 year.
I voted for that one.
So I vote for that
All
one
right.
and one other one that I read.
I've read Anxious People.
Yes, I voted for that.
Okay, tell us
It
about
starts
it.
out very strangely,
That's Freddie
Yeah.
Mercury.
and it all comes together in the end.
All right.
And it's delving into people and how they think.
And it's Bachman. Haven't we read stuff like that?
The
The Man Called Ove.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah,
love
and
that.
he's, I really like him. I totally agree with
And it's
that.
nice to read a translated book every once
Yeah,
in a while.
absolutely.
Which
To
one
get-
was that?
Anxious people.
Where is it?
Bottom of
Real-
the second page.
It's a choose one
There's a second
realistic
page.
fiction.
Oh, it's the
Yeah.
synopsis. Oh,
So anyone read Doctors Blackwell for any of the memoirs?
No, but I voted for Dr. Blackwell.
Okay, that's a biography and it kind of flows with our women's theme.
which is gay.
Yeah, and then another one that sounds really wonderful, it just came out, so that we wouldn't be able to read it till next year would be The Music of Bees.
Oh, yes, I definitely want to read that one.
Because they said that it
It's
was,
wonderful.
Yeah.
oh, you read it?
Yeah, it's just, it's
Oh,
terrific.
good. I have
I'm a
someone-
woman who, like mentors these
Yeah.
two kind of lost
Yeah.
souls,
Yeah.
and the stuff that you will learn just nature-wise, but it doesn't hit you, it's just part of the story.
I vote we
Okay.
we do that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's I thought this was just.
And it's just, as you can see, it's
terrific.
6:21, if we
Yeah,
just
it's
got
great.
it in.
Yeah, I really want to
Category
read
is
that.
that in?
It's under fiction.
Under
Oh,
fiction.
it is.
And as soon as they said it was similar to Eleanor Oliphant.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like,
Wait,
oh my
wait,
gosh, that was one of my
Wait,
favorite books.
wait,
Yeah.
it's in competition with anxious people, can we?
Yeah.
Can we
Oh, we
do
can read
12?
fiction. Yeah, we can, this,
Okay.
we gotta do 12 books.
We can do
Okay,
two
great.
fiction.
Yeah, no, I look and then I look at, can I get the books,
Yeah.
even though everyone wants that book, I'm like, yeah.
And
we'll
again,
get it.
my compliments, because you really
She
do,
does a great
you
job.
really do a good job, and, you keep books for us really well, thank you.
Okay, well, I'm so glad some of you have read these books, so we can, I know some of the people from the book club have read The Lost Apothecary. Anyone read that one? I know Joan Boyce read that and highly recommended it. But hey,
I voted for the Firekeeper's Daughter because it's a young adult
I
book.
think that we should read
A
a young
young
adult
adult
every
book.
once in a while.
Because I don't know what the author's name was, but I heard her speak in Appleton. And she wrote about a tragedy that was from the German perspective in the Second World War. And it was the sinking of the hospital ship. And it was incredible. And it was incredible because there were all these kids there. There were all these teenagers there too. And that was, but I just always think you should read a young adult book. She
Yeah.
turned me on to reading a young adult book.
That was Firekeeper's daughter?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not her. It's not the woman I heard speak, but this woman I heard speak at the Fox Cities Book Club was about 5 or 6 years ago.
Mhm.
And it's a whole genre I was unfamiliar with.
Yeah, young adults, I
And
like that.
I vote for pushing that.
Yeah, they read quicker too.
That's true.
That's important too,
Well, we
because
did read a
You know,
young
during-
adult. We
during
did.
the-
We
About the
have,
That pandemic is
Yeah,
Station
Station
Zero.
11.
Station 11.
No,
no, we
that's not young
read,
adult.
That was young adult. Yes, it was.
we
It was
read-
young adult, yes.
No,
Yes,
she's-
Mandel. I don't
No,
think
she's
that's
not at all.
young
She's.
adult.
no,
she's
we
not young adult.
read a book that was written like in verse, and then we had the pizza party, or,
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
the black skin thing, and
Yeah,
we invited,
The hate you give.
the hate you
The
give.
Hate You Give. That was YA.
Yeah.
And that author has written multiple books
Right.
now that the kids all
The
read.
You
one about the
forgive me.
pandemic, wasn't that the station?
Yes.
Yeah, but that was not.
I
That's,
thought so.
that's sci-fi.
But we
Yeah.
talked about, we even brought, I remember the one woman who used to come to the book club even said, because we were like, why did young kids like this book?
Yeah.
And she was like, well, because it
This is
gave them
young.
hope.
That's right.
Yeah.
So we talked
We
about it.
did
as a
talk
young
about it being
adult.
a young
Yeah.
adult, I remember.
But
I really like
I
that
think young
But
adults
some
accepted
adult
it, but-
books can be, like, there's a whole
Okay.
list,
Yeah,
they'll
I
have
Thought that was-
um,
yeah.
high school kids
But she doesn't get
reading
YA
adult
after her
books,
name.
which ones they
Oh,
like,
I don't know.
and that's.
Because that was the
does-
first time, honestly, I even heard of YA.
Oh,
So
well,
that's why I remember it.
Yeah.
I just because I went to this lecture.
Yeah, no, but that sounds.
Okay,
Which,
everyone.
by the way, the Fox Cities Book Club is not that far away, and they really do good things.
So our next book is Caste, and,
Which is definitely not YA.
Okay.
no, and it will not be recorded, we will not be doing any live.
No more Zoom.
No, I was talking to another librarian who has done it for a book club, and she goes, I would not record any discussion of that book. And so I thought, then this will be our end
Yeah.
of the virtual thing, because we get to choose. We want to keep doing the virtual, sorry, people who are virtual, do we want to keep doing the virtual thing, or do we want to go and just
I
do?
was a little uncomfortable when I found out that it goes back to the statement that anything you do electronically,
Yeah,
and I don't,
But I would
Think-
like it
I
like
don't
in the
think that I
winter, if
said
I'm out of
anything.
town, if I'm in
Yeah, I
South
get-
Carolina,
I-
that I can still
I
join
I
book
get,
club.
that, but
You think someone will rob our houses if they know?
not
we're here?
rob our houses. It's just like, did I say something that might have offended somebody?
Oh,
Because I'm
okay.
pretty forthright, and I've been.
No kidding.
And- But will you talk to me the next time you see me?
Yes.
You may or may not, okay, but I have been in many a situation
Really?
where people don't.
Really.
And that's fine in person, but I
I'm
don't know if I
sure-
like it up there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
we're
our
not-
club will be person, we're
Well,
not
I mean,
doing, we had
it-
we're able to choose.
But I agree, it was great
Yeah.
that we
Yeah.
could,
Yes.
we couldn't have been together during the pandemic without it.
But we
And
were
also-
together.
And the,
Right.
and the dynamic that it brought, that people such as yourself, if you were in South Carolina or wherever you went, you know, that's wonderful. But there's edginess, you know?
Yeah.
It made me think a couple of times like, wow, you know?
I think I'm gonna move to Montana and live in a cave. This is really starting to make me nervous.
No.
Don't do that.
All this electronic stuff and who's watching what. and-
Yeah.
I don't do anything interesting enough that.
Well,
I
I
don't
figure
either.
it's like, it's like the adage in the real world, you're 6 people removed, but this is Stark County, be careful. It's
Oh, I
4
know.
and a
Oh,
half.
it's
Right.
less than that.
That's
It's
true.
everybody's
I've been living
related
here
to
for this
somebody.
long.
Exactly, and think
That's
of
why nobody likes me.
and
We all know.
Nancy, think of the crap you and I put up that's what's said about us for stupid reasons.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Well, everyone, thanks for coming. If you have this paper version, if you can hand it to me if you voted twice, that's okay. Thanks.
Jack the ballot.